What is up? What is going on, everybody? I am back once again for my second video of the day. We are going to talk Seahawks draft. Real quick, if you're new to the channel, hit the sub button, hit the like button. I don't know why I'm holding the Q-tip. Helps me out a whole bunch on my channel. I've already broken down the Seahawks' first two picks of Devin Witherspoon and Jackson Smith and Jigba. I did a short on Jigba and a video on Witherspoon, so check those ones out. If you're also a Mariners fan like I am, please check out my Mariners post game from earlier today and check out the rest of my videos as well. Two things I'm going to apologize for. If you hear any background noise, I've got the whole neighborhood of kids outside playing in the pool right now, so that noise does come through. I apologize. And I don't think I've just got done doing some yard work, so hopefully I have no visible sweat stains going on too. That would be just lovely for you guys. I think I'm clear. So let's get started. Before I do, I want to show you guys all something very special that I just received as a gift not too long ago. Pull it up here so I can get a good view of it. It is a Kenny Easley jersey, but it is very special because, as you can see, it is autographed by the Seahawks Hall of Famer. It was a gift, someone very special to me, from my brother, who is a subscriber of the channel. So if you're watching this, brother, I love you, and thank you so much for this amazing gift. It is going to be, trust me, this is not to be worn. It'll be framed, and it'll be out here somewhere once the frame comes in. I've ordered it, so just waiting for it to come in, and then I will get that hung up. So super pumped about that. It is just really cool jersey, stitched and everything. Definitely my favorite in my collection. I wish I could wear it, but it's got to be framed. That is a framed one, so that will be up in the background somewhere. I'll move some things around, and that will get up there. Just wanted to share that with any Seahawks fans. Autographed jersey from the Hall of Famer, Kenny Easley. All right, let's get into the Seahawks picks. Like I said, I already broke down the first two, so we're going to go to round two and go through this. I don't know everything on all these guys. I'm not an NFL draft guru. I know a little bit. I do a little bit of research, but some of these guys, I can't tell you a whole lot outside of maybe what their position is and what that means to the Seahawks going forward this season. Apologize for that. Just need some water, and you don't need my water bottle in your view. So let's get to it, starting with round two, pick 37. They took Derek Hall, defensive end, outside linebacker from Auburn. Good pick, captain, a leader, someone that can come in and play right away. From what I've seen of Hall, he's a lot different than Boye Mafe, who they took in around a similar position last year. Hall is more power, not finesse, from what I saw. He's not going to, what's kind of the word I'm looking for? It's not going to be a secret what he's trying to do. He's trying to run you over, get to the quarterback. Listen, this is definitely an area of need for the Seahawks. Anything on that D-line, outside linebacker in the 3-4, essentially, to an extent D-line. It gives them some good depth there. It allows them to not have to sign the Bruce Irvin types. Not that we don't love Bruce, but allows them to kind of move on from maybe having to have those street free agents come in and play a lot. So you now have Nwosu, Taylor, Mafe, and Hall there that can all get meaningful snaps and hopefully get after the quarterback. I think it's a good pick. I wouldn't call it like a steal or anything at 37, but a solid pick. Good size, 6'3", 254. Had 19 and a half sacks over his 3 years at Auburn. Like I said, a captain too, so bringing those good intangibles to the table as well for the Seahawks. Obviously, somewhat of a somewhat of a debated pick at also in round two at pick 52. Zach Charbonnet, running back from UCLA, was taken by the Seahawks. I want to get into this a little bit, and then I'll get to the rest of the picks. So this may be kind of a long rant here. I am really, really, done with hearing from people how, I love Charbonnet's going to be great. I don't love hearing that Charbonnet is going to be great. I think he is too. He's going to be great. He's going to be amazing. I'm so pumped. But the process in taking a running back is just not good. So I don't like the pick. If you think a player is good, you think he's going to be great, and I'm not picking on anybody in particular here. There's a lot of people that have said that. But if you think a pick is awesome, you think he's going to be a great player, you think he's going to fit in and be a Seahawks great running back and a great player, how in the world is that a bad process? Like, good players is good for the team. That's good process. You want good football players on your team. If you think somebody is going to be good, that's a good process. Now, I know what people mean by it. It's the analytical, and I'm all for analytics. Love DVOA. I like PFF, EPA, all those things. Now, I think you need a mix. There's scouting, and there's analytics, just like in baseball. I do think football is a little harder to quantify in analytics. Baseball is so one-on-one driven, pitcher versus hitter, where football, you've got 22 guys running all around at one time. I think sometimes the analytics aren't perfect in football, but the notion is that running backs just aren't as valuable as other positions. Now, there certainly could be some truth to that. I don't deny that, like, people wanted an offensive lineman there, maybe interior defensive lineman. I certainly acknowledge the Seahawks need some help in the interior defensive line. I don't think their offensive line is as bad as people make it out to be, but I'm not against help there either, and we'll get into some of the stuff they did draft. And yes, a guard and center and offensive linemen tend to have better longevity than running backs do. Good example would be in 2006 when the Seahawks decided to keep Sean Alexander and let Steve Hutchinson walk, or the transition tag. We don't need to go down that road. Yeah, it would have been better off bringing Hutchinson back. That was a bad process. They chose that elite running back over an elite guard to sign long term. That doesn't mean that Sean Alexander was a bad pick or bad process by drafting him. So the notion that just all these guards and centers that were there were, and that was kind of my thing. It was like they were automatically just better. Oh, they should have drafted these guys because like guards and centers play longer, more valuable. Well, if they're really good, maybe, but there's no guarantee that they're better, that they're more valuable than what Charbonnet is going to give you necessarily. So the notion that just because that player is a guard or that player is a center, he's automatically more valuable than Charbonnet. Now, if you don't like Charbonnet and you don't think he's a good pick, then to each their own. I would disagree. I think he's a tremendous player, but you have a right to that opinion. You don't have to like him. And you can say, I wish they would have gone with a different route maybe, but the notion that it's bad process is just weird to me. And running back is absolutely a need for this team. We saw what happened when Kenneth Walker went down for a few games last year. The running game was abysmal. Walker had a lot of miles on him last year. Not anything crazy, but you don't want to overload him. And he has that lingering foot injury as well. So you'd like kind of a thunder and lightning combo, which I think they wanted to do with Rashad Penny last year, but then Penny got hurt. DJ Dallas is a perfectly serviceable emergency back. Like, he's a perfect 3-4 running back. If he gets 15, 20 carries a year, cool, no problem with that. But he's not a great number two. A number two needs to be someone that can also carry the load for you if your starter is out. And Charbonnet is going to get carries. This isn't someone that's just going to get 3 carries a game. Now, there might be game situations that lead to things happening, but I think the goal is to get Walker 15 to 20 and Charbonnet 10 to 15. I think he's going to help in some of those failed short yardage situations that the Seahawks struggled with a little bit too. He reminds me a little bit of Chris Carson. I think he's a good runner out of the shotgun. I didn't think Walker was as good there. I think Charbonnet is built for that. So I think it's a great compliment to Kenneth Walker as well. And if you look at most big boards, Charbonnet was kind of sitting there as some people I saw had him like 35th on their board as the best player. Now, being the running back, it dropped it a little bit, but still to get that at 52, I think if you're getting a player of that caliber, it is a good pick. And if you're worried about the interior line, one, if you got good backs, that can also make that line look better. But the notion, you know what I mean, like a good running back can also make up. While a good line can make sometimes mediocre running backs look great, a great running back can make mediocre lines look good as well. And I don't think the Seahawks line is that bad. Now, they did end up drafting a center, but that was kind of thing. They wanted, I forgot this name, they went to the Giants, the center, and everyone sort of wanted him. The Seahawks did sign Evan Brown in the offseason to likely be the starting center. Damian Lewis is a decent guard. Phil Haynes is decent, and again, good depth. And again, we'll get to some of the picks they made later as well. And you've got 2 great tackles on rookie deals in Cross and Abe Lucas. So the notion that they just had to go here with the interior line didn't make a lot of sense to me. And I think people get so wrapped up in this analytics that running backs, I mean, it's gone as far as there will people tell you running backs don't matter. They're all the same. I'm not even trying to be, exaggerate or hyperbole. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to be overstating it. There are people that will say that all these NFL running backs, you can plug them in if you got great lines, are all the same. And I'm sorry, like, I can respect that a guard with their longevity can have more value than a running back. Running backs live fast, they die young. They just don't last very long in the league. They take so many hits. I do understand that. But the notion that all these guys are just the same, and, well, they could have taken a guard there and gotten a running back in the 6th round. That was the other thing. Well, but it's not going to be as good as Charbonnet. Like, that's the point. You're getting a good player. Like, yeah, there's a lot of things they could have done. They also could have done what they did and take Charbonnet here and get some great value on the offensive line in the 4th and 5th rounds. So, to me, that notion of like, oh, I just don't like the process of taking a running back. It's not like they took Charbonnet at 1. I mean, it's not like with the 5th pick, they went with Charbonnet. And it's like, we're treating running backs nowadays like they're water boys. Nothing against water boys, nothing against it. But we're acting like they're just like, oh, God, a running back. Oh, gee, how could anybody draft a running back? It's just terrible. Now, like, if they were loaded in the running back room, I wouldn't necessarily agree with the pick, but they're not. They need another option there. And again, you now have a very loaded offense. And now, if Kenneth Walker does have to miss time, you have a legitimate guy that can come in and start games. Remember that Panthers game? How bad the running game was? Now, the run defense was terrible too. But remember how much a mess it was with Homer and Tony Jones? Dallas was banged up. I mean, it was a mess. Hopefully they won't be running into that this year. I also saw people saying, well, they should have just brought back Rashad Penny. One, Penny talked about wanting to move on, nothing personal, but with just his injury history, he wanted a fresh start. And two, Penny hasn't been healthy yet. I think the Seahawks were also kind of like, we love the talent, man, but it's just, you can't stay on the field. We want to go with someone that hopefully can. So I think Charbonnet's a really good pick. I think he's a great player. I don't think it's like the steal of the draft or anything like that. But don't overthink things, guys. If you're someone, listen, if you don't like Charbonnet, then fine. To each their own. If you don't think he's a good player, then so be it. I respect that. But if you're like, I think he's awesome, I think he's great, I just don't like that process of a running back there. Like, it's a good player that's going to make the team better. Don't worry about it. And also, these people, I've seen them like, well, if you're fine with the Charbonnet pick, then don't complain when they give up 300 yards rushing a game because they didn't address the D-line there. I'm not saying the Hawks don't need help on the D-line at all. They definitely do. And we'll get into that here later in the picks as well. But again, like, being happy that Charbonnet is going to be a good player and is going to come in here and help the Hawks has nothing to do with what I think about the D-line and what else they need to address. There just may have not been someone there on the D-line, the O-line that they really valued. They thought Charbonnet was the better pick, the better player. I think it's a great pick. I'll stop on that. Also, that argument of, like, don't complain when they run for 300 yards because you like the Charbonnet pick is such kid logic. If that's going to be your take, then you don't get to celebrate when Charbonnet does well. And I don't think that. I think you can celebrate whatever you want. Again, you don't have to like the pick. That's totally fine. But if it's just an issue of the process, take a deep breath and enjoy football. That would be my advice. All right, moving on to round 4. They traded the 85th pick to the Broncos for pick 108 and then a third rounder next year. It's actually really good value for the Seahawks. And we get to root for Denver to lose again next year. Not quite as substantial as it was this year, but still a third-round pick does belong to the Seahawks from Denver. So the worse Denver does, the better. Hey, that could be pick number 66, 67. I don't think Denver's actually going to be, as bad this year. I think they actually bounce back a little bit. But, yeah, so still a reason to root against Russell Wilson if you so choose. Hey, interior offensive line. They draft Anthony Bradford, guard from LSU. Big guy, mauler type guy. I believe he had some injuries, histories, which dropped down his draft stock a little bit. So I actually did end up inadvertently watching some tape on Anthony Bradford. Not because I was watching him, because I was watching some Jalen Carter tape in the SEC tape. Watching some stuff that, as much as I can watch. I have no connections to anybody to get film. And Carter went against Bradford a lot. Let me tell you, Bradford, I thought in the SEC championship game, kind of dominated Carter. It was actually the stuff that I watched that made me not wild on Jalen Carter. I wasn't against it, but I just kind of was a little sour on it. I thought he really owned Jalen Carter in the SEC championship game. Big guy, run blocker, good feet, good ability to get to the second level very quickly for a big guy. I don't think he's the greatest in pass protection. I think it's a little bit of a struggle, but I think for Seattle, you've got some great tackles with Cross and Lucas in pass protection. You can afford to sacrifice a little bit of it in the interior. I think Bradford has a chance to start. I do. I think he could come in and be a day one starter. He'll compete with Phil Haynes at right guard. He said guard is where he's most comfortable. I think that's where he was drafted to play. And I think he is going to have a chance to beat out Phil Haynes and start. I think in the very worst case scenario, remember how the Hawks rotated Jackson and Haynes a bunch last year? I think Bradford will rotate with Haynes. He's going to get some playing time as long as he's healthy. Also in round 4 at pick 123, it was pick 108 for Bradford. The Seahawks drafted defensive tackle Cameron Young. Don't know much about them. This is where it gets into, I'll just kind of break down the positions. Big guy, nose tackle type player they talked about. If you watch the phone call with Schneider and him, talked about stay big, man, stay heavy. Seattle definitely needs defensive line help. There is little doubt about that. Now, I do think it's maybe not as bad as some people think. You did add Jaron Reed. I'm not wild on Jaron Reed, but he's okay. Draymond Jones was one of the sleeper free agent pickups of this offseason. And then I don't know the stats of Brian Monet. You still have Miles Adams as well. But Cameron Young's another guy that's definitely going to have a chance to come in and compete to get some serious playing time on that interior of the defensive line, eat up some blockers, and hopefully allow some of these pass rushers to get home. Mike Norris, defensive end from Michigan. This was a guy they wanted to have him. They took him at round 5, pick 151. This is actually the pick the Seahawks got for the Akella Witherspoon trade with the Steelers. Was that last season or 2 years ago? That was 2 years ago, wasn't it? It was. What was it, or was it last off season? No, Witherspoon wasn't with the team. It was 2 years ago. Right? Yeah, because Trey Flowers ended up starting. Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, this is actually the Akella Witherspoon trade pick. They talked about Norris beefing up to 295. And again, you guys can tell me for all I'm thinking maybe 5 technique defensive end, sort of like a Red Bryant mold. Whereas, Cameron Young definitely fits more of the nose tackle physique. I think Norris is more of that big body defensive end. And remember, in a 3-4, your ends are guys like, Poona Ford played a lot there last year. It's not always about the pass rush. It's about setting the edge and letting those outside linebackers get free. So I'd imagine that's what they're looking for Mike Norris and why they wanted him to beef up. Another guy, listen, you got a chance to play in the Seahawks D-line. It's not a great group, so he's going to have a chance to make an impact as well. At round 5, 154, they went back to the University of Michigan and took center Alu Wadami. If I said that incorrectly, I apologize. I don't, again, this is where I just don't know a lot about these guys. I didn't look too much into later round picks. Center's definitely a position in need. I like Evan Brown. I think he's going to be a starter. My guess would be Alu is someone that I would assume sticks at center. They do need a backup center. I imagine it's going to be Evan Brown's job. Now, remember a couple of years ago, they did sign B.J. Finney to a couple-year deal, and he ended up getting beaten out by Ethan Posick. So Alu might have a chance to slide in there and maybe beat out Evan Brown. I don't know. I don't know a lot about him. My guess is Evan Brown definitely has the inside track, but Alu could be a guy that maybe in a couple of years starts at center. Maybe he can play guard a little bit too. I don't know. Seattle does love to have their offensive line, especially their backups, have a lot of positional versatility. That's something that they definitely value. And all of a sudden, again, this is why I wasn't mad at the Charbonnet pick. This offensive line actually has some pretty good depth to it, guys. Let's talk about the stars. You've got Cross, you've got Lewis, you got Brown, you've got either Bradford or Haynes at right guard, Abe Lucas at right tackle. It's a young offensive line, number one, which is really important. I think outside of Brown, they're all on rookie deals. Lewis is someone, and maybe Bradford kind of plays some left guard too, because if Lewis doesn't come back next year, you never know. And Haynes is on a 1-year deal too. Excuse me. Behind these guys, you have Stone Forsythe, who can play left or right tackle. I actually thought looked pretty good in his one start at right tackle last year. Jake Curhan is a guy that can play tackle and guard. Kyle Fuller is gone, thank goodness. Nothing against him, but he just wasn't good. And now you bring in Olu, who can play, center. And like I said, they like those guys that can play multiple positions. Wouldn't shock me if maybe play a little guard. Don't know if he has any history with that. But yeah, and there you go. So when you look at the Seahawks should have taken, I think it's Schmitz. Schmitz is the center that went to the Giants, who I like. I would have been totally fine with taking him at 52. But the people who went, you could have taken him and then taken running back later, or they could have taken Charbonnet, who is a fantastic player, and taken Bradford and Olu later and still gotten great value. So it's fine. They did a nice job with that. Getting into round 6, pick 198, Jarek Reed, safety from New Mexico. Another one that I did end up seeing a little bit because I forgot who I was watching. Somebody that played against New Mexico. I don't remember. And it was like 2 minutes. But he did play in a lot of 3 safety sets. And that's something I think Seattle's going to do a lot of this year. There's going to be a lot of Julian Love, a lot of Quandre Diggs, and I'm assuming a lot of Jamal Adams on the field all at once. You need someone else that can come in there. Reed's a guy that can kind of fill in, can play special teams, and can back up those safety positions as well. So I think that's a good fit there. I don't know how good he was. I didn't see him I didn't watch his film, but he can definitely fill in. Definitely play special teams, obviously, especially a 6th-round pick. But yeah, it's interesting that he kind of played in that defensive system, and I think that's what Seattle's going to run a lot of. And then in the 7th round, running back Kenny McIntosh out of Georgia. Again, don't know a lot about him. Great interview they had and phone call with him. He was truly emotional and excited. Seattle's running back room was bad. I mean, Kenneth Walker's great. DJ Dallas is pretty... And I'm not trying to, knock these guys. I think he's still got a great chance to make the team, but DJ Dallas is pretty generic. I mean, there's a lot of DJ Dallases out there, and he'll compete with McIntosh for that last spot. Travis Homer is gone, so they kind of need a special teams replacement as well. So we'll see if maybe that's something they look at from someone here as well. So and they've got some undrafted free agents they brought in to have a chance to compete here. Listen, I think they had a really good draft. I think it's solid all across. I give it B+, A-. I don't like to do favorite and least favorite picks. I don't know enough about some of these guys to really say, I don't like that pick there. I think they all got a chance to compete. Some of them will be great players, and probably some of them won't be on the team in a couple years. That's just how the draft goes every year. Not every one of these guys is going to be a stud. But Seattle's coming off an amazing rookie class last year, and I think they've got a group here that can definitely make some day one impacts. I think last year, Seattle had potentially the offensive and defensive rookies of the year. Now the Jets ended up getting both with Wilson and Sauce, and they were fantastic. But Kenneth Walker and Tariq Woolen were close. I think Witherspoon and Njigba could be 2 guys that compete as well. I think they could definitely have a huge impact and be potential rookies of the year. So I think Seattle has a chance there with those first-round picks to get true impact players. Pete Carroll did say after the draft, in terms of guys like Poona Ford, Shelby Harris, and Al Woods, they could bring them all back. I don't think that'll happen. I don't think they're going to bring all 3 back. I think one of them will at least be back. And my guess would be Poona. I will say this. It's interesting with those 3 players, and it's because it's one of 2 things. Either they didn't sign anywhere else because Seattle maybe had a little handshake deal that said, hey, let us get through the draft and we'll bring you back. Or 2, were they just not good enough to sign anywhere else? I mean, the Seahawks D-line was not good last year. Are people just looking at these players and going, we'll wait till after the draft? And I think that's maybe a little more what's going on. I could see Poona coming back and maybe Al. I don't know. We'll see. I could see. I think at least one of them will be back to help fill out that D-line. I don't think the D-line is as bad as people think it is. I think you've got some good edge rushers in Wosu, Taylor, Mafe, and now you've added Derek Hall as well. So I think you have a pretty decent group there that can get after the quarterback. The linebacker room is a little thin. Don't know Jordan Brooks, Devin Bush, and then, man, I think that's about it. They did sign an undrafted free agent from Washington. I don't remember his name. The middle linebacker group is very thin. Oh, Bobby Wagner. Oh my God, how am I forgetting Bobby? Wow, I completely forgot about Bobby Wagner. I'm in baseball mode right now. And Bobby. So it's actually not as bad as I think some people think it is there. The secondary is amazing. You've got Woolen and Witherspoon at the corners, which, my God, could be the best corner duo in the league. If you don't think that's going to help the pass rush, it is. Good lockdown corners will help people get after the quarterbacks. We know Quandre Diggs is good. And now I think with Diggs, too, he's a year removed from the injury, over a year removed. I thought Diggs started out the year rough last year. In fact, I thought it might get to the point where Quandre Diggs was a cut candidate, honestly. But he finished really strong. I think he got more comfortable playing after the injury, and he had a really good second half of the season. Jamal Adams was going to be a big part of this defense last year. I think people forget they were really, I think, going to have Jamal do a lot of different things on this defense. Now, he's coming off a major injury. I still think there's a chance they could cut Adams and just go with Julian Love. I don't know. I think it's possible still, but if you've got Adams back, and I think people forget, yes, I think Jamal Adams is, he was always about being overrated, blitz boy, all those things. And yeah, Adams is certainly overrated he's the best safety in the league 3 years ago. I would go back and I would not do that trade if I was the Seahawks. I would not do it. But Jamal Adams has become so overrated that he's kind of an underrated player. He's not bad when he's out there, guys. He is a good football player. He is strong against the run. He can get after the quarterback. He's not great in coverage, but the notion he's the worst safety in coverage isn't correct either. And you had Julian Love, which, along with Draymond Jones, I think is one of the best free agent signings this offseason. That's a really good secondary. You've added Jones. You've added Reed on the D-line. Both guys that can get you a handful of sacks. Hopefully with Cam Young coming in as nose tackle. And we'll see if they bring back Al Woods. That can help some of that run defense as well. We'll see what they end up doing here. I do think it's still a defense that's susceptible to run on, for sure. But hopefully getting Bobby back will help with that as well. And offensively, guys, this team is loaded with weapons. Even if you're so-so on Geno, even if second half of the year, he had the most turnover-worthy plays of any quarterback. I don't know. This offense is set up perfectly for a rookie to come in. I mean, this offense is now ready for a young quarterback to come in there, or the other way, and Geno is fine and plays great in the system. I've talked about the O-line. To get 2 bookend tackles last year in the draft is amazing. You've got Kenneth Walker, Zach Charbonnet, Noah Fant, hopefully Will Dissly healthy. Colby Parkinson was a pretty good weapon for this team last year. DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and you finally have a third receiver. Now, fingers crossed, you never know. But now with Njigba, you've got 3 wide receiver weapons here that can make an impact for this team. And maybe get something from D. Eskridge. I'm not counting on it, but maybe you can get something there. That's a pretty loaded offense. A rookie quarterback would be loving to come into that. So you either have that if Geno stumbles, or Geno continues to be solid and helps lead the Seahawks team. I like I said, A-, B+ on the draft. I think they had a real good draft. We never know. I mean, who knows at the end of the day. People hated the Bruce Irvin pick, the Russell Wilson pick, the Bobby Wagner pick, and it was probably the greatest draft in Seahawks history. So we'll see what ends up happening here. I got to get going, so as always, go Hawks. I hope you guys have a great day. I hope you guys enjoyed the draft, and we'll keep going with Seahawks talk, and if they make any free agency moves here into mini camps and training camps, hit like, hit sub, especially if you're a Mariners fan as well for all my Mariners videos. Have a great day, everybody. Take care. Go M's. Go Hawks. Peace.